Okay, so welcome to the Staffordshire County Council Leadership Webcast. So today we're going to be discussing emotional intelligence and its importance to you as a leader. So we're going to be breaking the session into three parts. Firstly, we're going to be exploring exactly what is emotional intelligence. Secondly, we're going to be speaking to some internal stakeholders as to the relevance to you there at Staffordshire County Council. And then thirdly, we're going to be looking at what you can do to develop your own emotional intelligence. So I'd like to invite my friend and colleague Lee Morris here. So Lee, just talk us through what are the five key elements of emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I'd split the five into, I suppose, two really, self and others. So you've got self-awareness, you've got then the sort of self-regulation or self-management of your emotions, and then motivation. How motivated are you? And some self-motivation in there. And then in terms of thinking about others when it comes to emotional intelligence, that's around empathy, social awareness, and then actually then social skills. So relationship building, relationship management are really, really key. So they're the five factors of emotional intelligence.
Okay, and why do you think it is so important for leaders today to have that emotional intelligence?
There's so many benefits. So there's the obvious benefits of there'll be better communication, stronger relationships, greater trust, and then I think it's also great for things like conflict resolution. Brilliant for influencing skills, motivation of your team, etc. And ultimately, it's around higher staff engagement, and that usually equates to higher results and
Yeah.
productivity.
And is it the kind of thing you're either born with or you're not? Is it something that can be learned?
No, I mean, whilst I'd agree that some people naturally
Yeah.
have more emotional intelligence than others, it's definitely not something that you should say, oh, I'm not emotionally intelligent, so I'm going to leave that one
Yeah.
for other people. It can be learned. It's something that you need to practice, like a lot of different attributes and skills. But it's so key now to a leadership toolkit that it shouldn't be ignored.
And one thing that I suppose I come across quite a lot is people saying, "But how can you do it and be authentic?" Because some people genuinely don't care what kind of weekend other people have had. So me going in and pretending to care doesn't feel authentic. So what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I would 100% agree that you've got to
Mm.
be yourself. So I think being authentic and true to yourself is really, really important in this.
Mm.
So it might not necessarily be that you're going to go to everybody on a Monday morning and say, "How was your weekend?" All
Mm.
smiley and all happy. I think you've got to do it in your own way, in your own style. So it might it might just be about how you doing, or just having a conversation about work even, just to get the conversation flowing. But 100%, if you start thinking, oh, right, I've been on a course and now I need to be more emotionally intelligent, so I'm going to do this, this, and this, it's just not going to wash with people. But it is something you practice and you can introduce steps at a time as well.
So is it something that you see being more and more important going forward when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, I think especially with well-being so paramount as well. I think we've got to be more empathetic to people. We're
Yeah.
living in this VUCA world now where things are changing. Of course, we've seen that firsthand with COVID-19. I think it's really important that us as leaders are aware of our own feelings actually and how we manage those feelings, but also the feelings of others. So that empathy I think is so key. How do you step into somebody's shoes? But then also the relationship building as well.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How do you grow your relationships? What about fractured relationships? How
Mm.
do you get them back on board? What about new ones as well? All really, really key in emotional intelligence.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that, Lee. I'll come back to you again a little bit later in the webcast, but I'm just going to go and speak to a couple of the guys from Staffs County Council.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I'm now joined by Becky Reynolds and Kate Sharrett from the Families and Communities team to carry on our discussion around emotional intelligence. So, Kate, if I come to you first, I mean, why do you think emotional intelligence is so important for leaders there at Staffordshire County Council?
I think we have all been through a considerable period of change, not only with what has happened with the COVID experience, but certainly from a leadership perspective over the last 5 years. There's been a definite shift, I think, from how emotional intelligence needs to be a really considered part of leadership. And certainly for me in Staffordshire, we've started to really explore that, and started to see that in a lot of the forums and in the ways that we interact with one another.
Okay, and Becky, what are you seeing right now?
I think for me, emotional intelligence is about relationships and how we work together, and really taking that time to stop and think about how we connect with each other, about how we communicate with each other, and recognise the impact of ourself on our working relationships with colleagues within our teams and external to our teams across the whole council.
So it sounds like something that's already quite live there. So from your perspective, Kate, what would you like to see more of then?
So, and this is particularly in families and communities, but I know that as a wider council, we're really interested in exploring this further, is about our restorative nature around how we actually interact. And as Becky's just already alluded to, that's really predicated by having a relationship-based approach to the way that we do things. And certainly for me, what I'd like to see more of is about us kind of taking that time to understand and explore where we're coming from, appreciate that appreciative inquiry around understanding how somebody might be experiencing something differently from you. You might not always agree, but to have the confidence and the honesty to be able to go, I don't quite connect with that, I don't quite understand, but certainly have that confidence to be able to say, okay, let's pause for a minute and explore that.
Okay, and from your side, Becky, how do you think it would look different if you did see more of that emotional intelligence? How would it be different to how it is now?
I think we know about emotional intelligence that the outcomes can be really positive, where we stop and think about our styles, our relationships, how we reflect on self. So if we continue with talking about emotional intelligence, stopping and thinking, we're going to see increased well-being in both ourselves and our teams, which of course has better outcomes for the people of Staffordshire who we seek to support. We know that within our teams we'll see reduced stress levels, we'll be delivering better services. So as we continue on this journey around embedding emotional intelligence and restorative approaches, I think we're going to really start to see the real benefits.
Absolutely. And Kate, from your perspective, how far do you think you've come as an organisation?
I mean, I've been with the local authority for 10 years now, and I think it feels a very different place to work. I think we've moved a great stride away from it being perceived as quite a hierarchical kind of culture to one where actually it's about your skill set, it's about what you bring, it's about having those relationships with people as we've alluded to, so that actually you are valued. Your contribution is valued for your skill set and for what you bring to a particular debate or an agenda item. I can see that certainly that move from if you're only at a certain level, you can only go to certain meetings, has certainly kind of been eroded away, and it's much more around what your contribution is and how it will add value.
And what about you, Becky? Any kind of thoughts from you?
I'm newer to Staffordshire County Council. I've only been here, I'm coming up to a year, so it's been really quite exciting to join at this point and see the journey moving forward, and to really learn from what's gone before. So Kate and I are probably coming from slightly different levels of experience within Staffordshire to reflect.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for our quick catch up there. We're going to now look at some ideas and some tips and techniques as to how people can try and build and grow their emotional intelligence. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll speak to you again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm back with my colleague Lee Morris. So Lee, we've just been hearing there from the kind of the council's perspective, but from your side, what can you do then to develop your emotional intelligence? What can we do to help grow it?
I think there's a whole host of things that you can do. I think start by reading a little bit more about it as well. So I think there's lots of useful books by Daniel Goleman. I'm reading a book at the minute which is called The EQ Difference, and that's a really useful book by a lady called Adele Lynn. And that you can really relate practical examples to the workplace on that one. I think there's things like creating a personal SWOT analysis. So you can start to think about what your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities and threats are. Even keeping a journal of how you're feeling, and then, you know, how others are acting and feeling as well. And all things like increasing your listening skills, trying to be more empathetic and stepping into somebody's shoes a little bit more as well, working on those biases and trying to get rid of some of the conscious biases that you might have. And I suppose as well, monitoring your self-talk that you're having as well. And things like sharing your passions as well and enthusiasm about you know, work and stuff, and really trying to inspire people in your teams, because what we want is actually, when you grow your emotional intelligence as a leader, we want that to then manifest itself in your teams as well.
Yeah. And is there a bit of a paradox here, though, that the people who are more self-aware are likely to be the people who are good at this stuff naturally, and the people who are less self-aware are probably the people who maybe need it the most, but they're the least likely to go out and seek it?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I think it's more likely if someone does lack self-awareness, that they are less likely to recognise that they do need to improve in self-awareness, emotional intelligence.
Okay, so what would your top tips be then, if there was just a few things that all of us could do to really kind of help grow and develop our emotional intelligence?
People might not like this, it might be controversial, but get feedback. You know, it's a big one for me. We talk about things like shadow I cast and the light that you shine, and I think that's really, really key. So what am I like when, you know, I'm doing well and I'm at my best, and what am I like when actually I'm under pressure, or, you know, I'm not at my best as well, and what's the impact on other people? And I think that's really key as well. You know, how is that affecting my team or other stakeholders and co-workers? And I think that's a really good starting point, is get feedback. Not necessarily 360-degree feedback, just more informal feedback. Start asking for that. And then you'll sort of glean, you know, well, how do I appear to people? Am I managing my emotions? Am I good at relationship building? Am I good at spotting their emotions as well and their feelings? And that's a great starting point. And like I say, reading a little bit more about it, I think can be really useful as well.
So it sounds, from what you're saying then, it's not something that we can just learn and tick the box. It does sound like something that all of us can continue to grow, continue to develop, and it's more of a journey in that we can all improve.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no sort of set tick list or anything like that to say I am now emotionally intelligent. It's something that you can grow, and I would recommend that you practice really. And we talk about conscious practice in leadership, and that's really, really key. And there's so much you can do when it comes to all those 5 factors really of emotional intelligence to continually improve.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lee. And for everybody else, thank you for watching our webcast today. If you do want some more resources, you can find them there on the kind of the platform, along with the rest of the learning resources as part of this program. But thank you very much, Lee. Thank you very much, everybody else.
Okay.
And we'll see you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.